We have our monthly visit from Kelton Hatch today from Idaho Fish and Game. He's joining us in the studio on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and News Radio 1310.com. We should point out, this is not difficult for him because of his media background. All those years you spent writing about duck hunting and the like.
Yeah. But no, I'm always glad to come. It's fun to get the phone calls and talk to folks and tell them what's going on with the department.
I know you wanted to mention pronghorn sheep today, and I know it's mixed in here, but maybe
Prong,
or pronghorn
pronghorn
elk,
antelope.
antelope rather,
Yeah.
and we'll move that up maybe to the top here just because it was somewhat
You
timely.
know, and that's great.
Yeah, the situation the other day is sad, I guess, but these things do happen.
It does. This has been, I'm going to add a little bit more just other than the pronghorn in this part. Right now, this weather is really devastating on some of our wildlife, especially in the northern part of the region. Sun Valley, Ketchum,
Hmm.
Fairfield. What Bill was talking about is we had about 500 pronghorn that were crossing Lake Walcott. Two ice anglers were down there watching them, and about 200 of them got across. Well, about half the herd right in the middle of the herd crossing, they panicked, they spooked, something spooked them, and we ended up having 47 stranded on the ice. They got on a real slick spot. 250 of them just decided not to cross when it started getting slick, and they worked their way back out onto the big desert. And we had 200 across the lake, and then we had 47 on the lake. We were notified of this late Sunday afternoon. We got folks out there. They were trying to determine how the safest way for the staff and the wildlife would be. We decided to come back early the next morning. It was getting too late. We got an airboat. By the time we got back there, 10 animals had been killed or died the night before on the ice. We had to dispatch another 20 because of injuries sustained from being on ice, slipping and falls and breaking bones and things like that. And we was able, in the next morning out of that 47, 10 had already gotten off the lake during the night, and then those others that were injured, and then we were able to capture. We brought the state vet over from Boise. He was here at 7 in the morning, and we went out there and he examined all the animals before we euthanized the ones that we did, and was able to release six. And then all the other animals were processed and given to those that were in need. And so the animals didn't go to waste, but it was still a pretty tough operation. I mean, we don't see a lot of these type things happen, but I mean, we had a couple of years ago, we had a bunch of elk go through the lake over at Lake Lowell. Right now, we've just got a lot of animals that are struggling, and so I guess what I would ask people to do is number one is around Twin Falls in this area. When you're driving, be really cognizant. There's lots of animals down in the valley. They're looking for feed. We're not as bad down here as up north when you get over into Gooding, Wendell, Shoshone, uh, Fairfield, Haley, all of that country. They've got about 36 inches as of yesterday on the level. And we're starting an emergency feeding program up there in the Wood River Valley. We've been feeding at
Hmm.
the Big Smoky feed site, and I was working on this morning before I didn't even get it on our list this morning, Bill. I was working on a release for this because we've got four places. Um, the Cove Ranch, Peekaboo Ranches, Dry Creek, and near Queens Crown that we're going to start emergency feeding because we've got roughly 1,000 head of elk in those little areas right there on cattle feed lines near roads. We got a ton of elk that are stranded up in Haley in people's backyards and stuff. Our problem is with feeding in Ketchum and Haley. Um, we don't want to get a big congregation of animals in any of those
Right.
areas, and it would make it worse for the landowners because it'd devastate their shrubbery, cars going by there, and it's not good for the animals. So we're hoping they'll migrate down to these other feed sites.
And we wanted to point out too your people that your teams that went out on the ice. I mean, this is dangerous for them too as well in this situation.
Well, it was, and that's what our big concern was. We actually took an airboat um, and was able to take the airboat out on the ice to be able to, in case the ice had broken
Hmm.
under, and then people were moving around after we were able to get the to know how thick the ice was. You're always concerned about warm springs or things like that on lakes. and where you get soft ice where somebody will go through. And so, but was able to get out there, and fortunately, we only had a couple minor injuries, to staff, wrench backs and things like that, working on different things. And but it's one of those winters. It's like our phone's ringing off the hook right now because we've got animals here and animals there. I-84, we're getting a lot of animals hit right now. They've migrated down from the desert
Hmm.
down by Travelers Oasis. The other morning I came in and there's three fresh animals that had just barely been hit on that little short stretch of road. So really slow down and be aware of what's going on. I mean, falls anywhere along Rock Creek, any of these streets around Twin, you can run into animals
I
right
was
now.
driving from Idaho Falls to Pocatello a couple of weeks ago, and I was coming down the highway, and it was foggy, so I had slowed down, and then I saw the flashing sign warning me of elk for the next 10 miles.
Yeah.
So they're very close to the highways.
They are. And you see, and that's one of the biggest reasons we're starting some of these feeding programs up north. And we fed down here near 84 in the past is to try to keep these animals off the interstate. We're going to lose animals whether we feed or not. It's just by the nature of their digestive system and changing over their rumen to be able to digest this new types of feed, but it does keep them away so that human life isn't as in danger. And so that's one of the biggest reasons we're starting to feed.
You wanted to mention, too, as well today, a couple of hunting seasons coming to an end?
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad, Bill. The end of the month, upland game birds close. On the 27th, duck and geese close. We do have a later season going on for like white-fronted geese or speckled bellies. They'll close on February 19th, and then the blue, Ross, and snow geese or light geese close on March 10th. And so we have those seasons that are still going. But after the 27th, all waterfowl, the you mean Canadian geese and ducks will close in the area. Some of the areas around the state closed on the 13th, so they're out of luck right now. They're driving over here to try to hunt if they're still hunting, and so things are coming to the end. But we're actually in the midst of getting ready for next year's big game seasons, and we'll talk a little bit about. Well, I probably ought to mention that if I can, Bill. I forgot to throw this on my little list too. There's just so much going on right now that we've got big game season setting meetings. And I'm going to get this to you. Hopefully, I can get you to announce this, which I know I can every once in a while to remind folks. But we're looking at changing seasons for deer and elk, offering a lot more elk tags down south and up around the Wood River Valley, depending on how the winter goes and everything. But we've really got excess of elk in a lot of areas. And so in Burley, we'll be meeting at the Best Western on the 13th, February 13th. Here in the in Twin Falls, Jerome area, we'll be meeting at the Jerome Regional Office on the 15th, and we'll be up in Haley on the 16th. And it'll be just discussing the next 2 years elk, deer, and pronghorn hunting seasons, well, in mountain lion and black bear. And we're going to be discussing those meetings. So if anybody has any questions, would like to, contribute to that, want to help shape next year, couple of years hunting seasons, come to those meetings. It starts at 6 o'clock at those different areas.
And again, you've said in the past, sometimes you only get a small turnout for a meeting, and then afterward, people go, hey, well, how come I didn't know about this?
Yeah.
Well, we're making it as public as we can.
We are, and we've got it on Facebook. We're going to be sending out emails. We're going to talk to Bill again on this. Try to get you guys mark it in your calendar right now. Make it a priority. Come to the meetings. They start at 6 o'clock. Daryl Mites, our regional population manager, will sit down and give a presentation on all the changes, and there's a lot of changes that we're looking at making. Adding a few muzzleloader hunts for deer, changing our rotating hunt, adding lots and lots of cow elk hunts. We've just got so many depredation issues going on right now. Um, you know, at all time high, Idaho had around 125,000 elk, is what is estimating the population. At one of our highest peaks, 115, 125. Right now, we're around 115,000. The difference is the elk where the elk are living. At that time, when we was at that all-time high, that was in the Frank Church, the Selway, in a lot of our wilderness areas. Well, elk numbers haven't rebounded in some of those areas as yet, but in all our front ranges, like down here against the Nevada-Utah border, um, all of that stuff up around Haley, everything that's close to humans pretty much, we've really got an excess of elk, and they're really getting into a lot of trouble.
I was going to say that they're probably a healthier herd as well versus what we may have had at the peak.
Well, we really had a smoking excellent elk herd when in the Frank and the Selway, and we've had some habitat issues. Uh, you know, we've got some other things going on with predation up in those areas that we're still working on, and so
Great creatures with four legs.
well, and you know, part of it, I mean, up in the low Lochsaw, a lot of that area is really habitat driven up there. It's got such heavy cover and canopies of forest that we've got between predation and lack of habitat for them to graze. Our numbers have really decreased, and so yeah, it's not one single thing, but it's more of an additive thing. This much of this and then added and it just keeps piling up and then it starts slowing reproduction and population growth down where we're not seeing that on any of these front ranges.
Got about 2 minutes to go before the next break, but want to remind people Kelton's here for the entire hour. So later in the program, if you've got a question or comment, feel free to give us a call at 736 0300. Did you mention upland game birds yet?
We talked a little bit about that. It's been a great season, and I did say that pheasants have been closed for a while. However, this coming weekend, I mean, the end of the month will end the chucker, the Hungarian partridge or gray partridge, and the quail seasons across the state of Idaho. And so that's really getting close to the end.
There was a fellow writing in the Times News about a month ago bemoaning uh, the downturn in pheasant in the valley. Is that something that there's a lot of concern about?
It is. It's just one of those deals that wildlife is based on habitat. We are based on habitat. If we can't get food, we don't survive.
Right.
If we don't have food, shelter, water, and space, and that's what's going on with the pheasants. I mean, um, the ag industry has to make a living. That's their job. They're a business. To be more productive, they've put in a lot of center pivots. Most of your family farms are big farms, and they've taken out fences. Not everybody has 5 or 10 or 15 cows. Not any, very few people are still flood irrigating and using irrigation dishes. It's just not economical or productive for them to be able to make money like that. That's what made pheasants in the Magic Valley. Lots of fence rows, so we had lots of tall grass, lots of weeds for
Mm-hmm.
cover. We had lots of flood irrigation, which produced a lot of bugs, which baby chicks eat. And now we're trying to be better with our water usage. If you take care of the weeds on the edge of the field, you don't have to worry about those in the middle of it. So they're taking care of the weeds, and it's really had an impact on the overall health of pheasant population.
We've got more with Kelton Hatch coming up from Idaho Fish and Game. You're listening to News Radio 1310, KLIX, and NewsRadio1310.com. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story. 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. We've got 34, maybe 36. We'll top off at the high for today. And if you would like to chat with Kelton in the next segment, telephone number 736 0300. Our guest in the studio is Kelton Hatch. He's joining us from Idaho Fish and Game this morning. Call it 923, and if you've got a comment or question for Kelton while he's in the studio with us, 736-0300, 736-0300. I won't call today's weather warm, and it's going to be a miserable driving day, but we are going to get some colder weather again by about the middle of next week. Maybe not as cold as it has been, but colder weather. And of course, this is what reveals problems with your heating at home. And so if you're having some issues, you need to call the pros at Ramsey Heating and Electric. Ramsey Heating and Electric will come out and get the job done right and get it done right the first time. Problem-free cozy winters found at Ramsey Heating and Electric, 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. The telephone number, 678-0459. That's 678-0459. Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they sell warm winters and cool summers. Kelton Hatch in the studio with us today until 10 o'clock this morning. And you have a quick note here, Hunter Report.
Hunter reports, yeah.
These things obviously take a little time to compile.
Well, it does because you've got a couple 100,000 hunters in the state,
Yeah.
and we are in the process of setting seasons for next year. Those hunter report cards And a hunter report card is Bill, if you went out and you bought a hunting license and then you bought a deer tag
Hmm.
and an elk tag, what we want you to do is go online or call us at the regional office. You just have to have your hunter license number. You go online and it's got a little orange hotkey. You click on it. It's got the license that says Hunter's Report. Click on that, and it goes in and asks you how many days you hunted, what units you hunted, did you harvest? If so, how many points the animal had, or if it was a doe, how many days did you hunt? And that helps us to be able to understand. We try to get officers out all over, but it's really anecdotal information you're gathering when you're driving around in the truck. Because if I'm over in, you know, Unit 43 driving down Grouse Creek Road, I'm going to say, well, Twin Falls moved here because there's people everywhere. But then this hunter report card goes, oh, well, those guys only hunted for 2 days and we had this many people. So for how many square miles it was, that wasn't that much pressure, and they had a 30% harvest success of this size of animal. And so it helps us understand what's going on with our herds. It helps us set next year's season setting. It gives us information that we can give you guys so you can determine where you want to go hunting on these general hunts and what harvest success was. But please get that information in. It's a critical part of getting being able to set next year's seasons.
You also have a note here: controlled hunt application for bear and turkey.
Yeah, they are. There's not a lot of controlled bear hunts in Idaho. There's not a lot of controlled turkey hunts, but bear hunts actually have started for a controlled application. We've got a couple of units over there on the Oregon-Idaho border out of Cambridge. Application period for those have started, and then we'll be having turkey applications starting as soon as they're over, and that'll be for down here in the South Hills and stuff like that. So, I said it's ending, but it's actually beginning. Or is it beginning, Bill? We're getting philosophy here, a little, it's
Comes
we're
full
just
circle.
it is because we're setting next year's seasons, and come April 15th, um, we'll be hunting again. So
Turkey, by the way, and friends have told me this, that while it may sometimes appear to be the dumbest animal on the planet, when you're hunting it, it suddenly becomes the smartest animal on the planet.
well, yeah, anytime you're getting frustrated. Well, I mean, you could take turkeys all day with a center fire cartridge or a rim fire cartridge. You can get that distance. You can find them, you can hear them, you can sneak in on 'em, but they do have very wary senses. They're fun to hunt. I don't hunt them as much as I'd like. We don't have a super huge population around here. We do have some Rio Grande, I mean, some, yeah, Rio Grandes down here. In the South Hills, one of the only places you can get Rio Grandes in Idaho, and so it's a good opportunity. But we've got a lot of open units up in the northern part of over by Cambridge, all the way through the Panhandle, and so it's a fun activity to do in the spring instead of sitting around and waiting for summer to wait for fall again.
Turkey are a lot like rabbits because I read that during the Great Depression there may have only been 3 million of them nationwide, wild turkey, but by about 1990 we had 35 million of them nationwide. So they have managed to come back from a low about 80 years ago.
Well, yeah, and we didn't have turkeys west of the Mississippi. And the Turkey Federation started. Uh, well, I don't know how far. There had to been some, but we didn't have them in Idaho. And the Wild Turkey Federation, along with Fish and Game, and lots of sportsmen that have been really active, have established a super strong turkey population in the state of Idaho, to the point that you can shoot, I think, between 5 or 7 a year up in the panhandle. And so if you're looking for something to do, it's fun to go up there, call them, get them within range, and they're good eating.
And they have a different taste than what you get through the grocery store.
Yeah, they're not a butterball.
Right.
They've got a very spiked. Their breastbone is not big and plump. Their breasts, the chest meat on them isn't big and plump. But you can take that, pound it, and then pan fry it. Is excellent. It's got
Hmm.
really good flavor. It's tougher than turkey that you buy in the store because they actually use their muscles to live.
Yeah.
They fly
Yeah.
places instead of just sitting around eating, getting heavy. And so you have to look at some recipes. You can take the back legs and the thighs on them and boil them, and then you boil them down until they break down, and then you can pan fry them. And I make a lot of tacos. Turkey leg,
Oh.
they're really good. Those turkey legs, boiled down, and then you put a bunch of spices in them, and Put a little bit of meat on a corn tortilla, and that makes them really good.
We just want to mention we got half an hour left with Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fishing Game coming up on 9:30. It's 33. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. I just took a quick look at the TV monitor, and they're showing on live TV the jet leaving New York for Washington with the president-elect. You'd think the Beatles were coming again. Joining us in studio today, Kelton Hatch from Idaho Fishing Game. And he's also available to take some of your telephone calls, too. If you've got a comment or question for Kelton and anything related to Idaho Fishing Game, telephone number, I'll get that out sooner or later. 7360. Sometimes you're trying to say two words at once and you could get a combination. 7360300. 7360300. This is the thing when you don't work with a script. I had a brother-in-law one time.
You're not working with a script? I am. No.
He said to me one time, he said, well, how long does it take you to script that show? And I said, what script?
Yeah.
There's no such thing.
Yeah, there's shoot from the hip here.
Sometimes all too often. We have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air on KLIX.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I was wondering about the stuff going around on social media about the auctioning of tags and how that's going to affect the average guy that can barely afford to hunt now. And if the state needs more money, can they look at raising the fees for the out-of-staters? And I'll hang up and listen on the radio. Thank you.
Appreciate the call. If you've been keeping up a little bit in the media, this has been a really hot button topic. Is the sales of tags. About 2 years ago, the legislature passed that we had the right to sell tags, and our commission opted against it. This last year, there's been a lot of stuff going on with that, and the commission continues to push against that. If you've really got some questions about the auction tags, I would definitely talk to your legislators or your senators, because they're the ones that are in control on this pretty much right now. The commission has set they're opposed to it at this present time. We do have an auction tag on bighorn sheep right now, and they've given us the ability to, I think it was up to 25 other deer, elk, and antelope tags, but that hasn't come to fruition. And with the current commission, I don't know that it will. On the other part, we did increase the non-resident hunting and fishing licenses a few years ago. This year, we're actually looking at a fee increase, or it's called a price lock program for residents. So, like if you buy, it's looking to increase the fees between $2 and $3. Between $3 and $6 for each item of purchase, whether it's a deer tag, hunting license, fishing license, things like that. However, the price lock deal is if I buy one this year and fees go up next year, I'll pay the same price for that license the next year. I work on a committee. It's recruitment, retention, and reactivation of sportsmen. Because we're a dedicated fund agency, we receive no tax dollars. And so we get paid by the sportsmen that use the resource. If they buy a hunting and fishing license, that goes into our coffers to be able to pay for all the programs. We've sold to about 1 million different people in the state of Idaho. 500,000 different people have purchased different things on it every year, and nearly 1 million people have purchased some type of hunting or fishing license. But just about 2/3 of our anglers do not buy fishing licenses every year. They'll buy it this year, and then they won't buy another one for 4 or 5 years. What our goal with this is to increase a few of those people, to pick up some of those guys that are falling by the way, the churn, the people that buy every once in a while, to get them more active in purchasing those licenses, and then we can maintain. We're still one of the cheapest states for buying hunting and fishing licenses, but that's something that we're taking to the legislature this year, and so hopefully we can get some support from our sportsmen on it.
Some neighboring states have done something similar, right? This is not unusual.
Everybody, it's kind of interesting. Idaho has really been one of the leaders. A lot of the other states have really got expensive. if you draw a trophy species tag down in Utah for like a bull elk,
Mhm.
you could pay up to $300 as a resident. In Idaho, it's still the 23.95 or 23.50, whatever it is, for an elk tag, regardless of the quality of the tag. Whether it's a trophy bull or a cow elk, everybody pays pretty much the same, and so it really levels the playing field. There's a lot of different things going on out there right now. We're trying to do what we feel is best for the sportsmen of Idaho. We try to maintain the wildlife so that people can hunt every year, so they're not setting out for year after year after year. In some of the surrounding states, it may be every 15 years you can hunt elk or deer, um, because of the draw systems and things like that. And as long as we've got good, sustainable populations of deer that are providing the benefit for the sportsman, will probably keep going. And that's why it's so important to come to these big game meetings. If you have a difference in opinion or you like to see things change, come and talk to us about it.
And
But
we
I
want,
appreciate the guy's call.
yeah, and we could end up with some sort of hybrid system too. Try to please everybody.
You bet. Well, that's what we try to do. That's why our regulations are 150 pages, because we're trying to please everybody.
We've got more with Kelton Hatch on the way in just a minute. On News Radio 1310 KLIX and News Radio 1310.com. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story. At 9:40, we've got 35. Guest joining us in the studio right now is Kelton Hatch. He's with us from Idaho Fish and Game. And we've got about a little over 15 minutes to go. It's 9:43 and it's 34. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story. And if you've got a question or comment for our guest, 736-0300, 736-0300. And he has a long list of things to talk about today. People think January is a quiet month. You mentioned bull elk, reference to them earlier, what it would cost you to hunt them in Utah. Some people, obviously, though, are still trying to hunt them for free.
Yeah.
You've got a situation you're still looking into.
Well, we are. We just had a bull that was shot and left near the road over by Bliss. Um, it was walking. It was near a haystack near a road. Somebody drove by and shot it and left it. We're just looking for information. Plus, we've had a few bucks that were in the South Hills on between Indian Springs, Cherry Springs area that were shot and left. Some of them had antlers removed. Um, it's just really frustrating. These animals make it through hunting season, they get on winter range, and then somebody just comes along and takes a pot shot. And the thing is, I want to emphasize, these are not hunters that
Mhm.
are doing this. These are not sportsmen. There's nothing sporting about driving down the road and shooting an animal that's trying to make a living in the winter. Um, and so we're just really looking for information. There's a citizens CAP hotline you can call, or you can call the regional office at 324-4359. You can remain anonymous, and you can receive a reward for information leading to the conviction or arrest of these people or persons that are involved in these poaching instances. And so it's just it's just really, really frustrating, because, people play by the rules for years,
Mhm.
trying to draw the coveted bull elk tag or a coveted buck tag. Then you have people that just go out and steal them from the population. And it's not like they're trying to utilize this animal for anything other than target practice, because none of the meat's been removed. Some of them, the antlers weren't even cut off. We do have instances where people will shoot these animals, leave them, and then come back and cut the antlers off and say that they found them dead. And we know that, but we're just really, it's to the point they're just too precious of a commodity out there. And so if anybody has any information about that, please give us a call.
We have a caller with us. Caller, I want to thank you for your patience. You're on the air at 9:45 on KLIX. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, as I've traveled around the state from north to south, east to west, I've talked to a lot of sportsmen, and it seems like the general consensus with many of them, not all of them, but many of them, is the lack in faith or trust in the fish and game's ability to manage the game and the herds and everything. And I know there's great guys that work for the fish and game, just like in any industry. However, in the limelight of what's going on with the current stuff that's going on in Boise and the auction tags and the secrecy about all that sort of stuff, it doesn't help to show how good fish and game can be. Some of the other things I don't know if you can touch up on, the chances of drawing, your odds of drawing, and the number of tags for each unit. Some of those units seem absolutely absurd for the number of tags that are sold each year for them. And one of the last callers touched up on the fee for out-of-state hunters. It's an out-of-state hunting fee in Idaho is very minimal in some people's opinion. And what about getting together with the prosecutors and making harsher penalties for people that are caught violating fish and game laws? If you could just touch up on some of those, I'd appreciate it.
You bet. Appreciate the call. And I hear his concern. I understand there is a lot of concern with the way we we manage wildlife in some instances. I can tell you we're trying our very best, but there's a lot of underlying issues that we deal with. We're mandated by the state legislature, and all this auction tag stuff is not us. This is coming from the state legislature. This is not us. We did not ask for it. It was passed on that. And a lot of those programs they take place over in Boise. And so, and there's quite a few articles in the Times News as well as KMVT, all our local news outlets, out of Boise paper that talk about these auction tags. And if you take a little bit of time and Google that, it will shed a lot of light on what's going on, and you can talk about what's been going on with the commissioners that were replaced this year. And the reason one of the reasons that the commissioners were released, they believe, from the commissioner's letters, is because of these auction tags. It's something that the department or the commission had been trying to keep out of the state of Idaho. On the price of non-resident tags, it was probably 5 years ago when we made our first bump on hunting licenses. It's probably 8 years ago when we went to the current price that non-residents are right now. We really priced ourselves out of the market at that time. We were one of the most expensive states around for non-residents. Now we're actually getting to be one of the cheaper ones. And I understand on this price lock, we don't know how that's going to go through. I could myself see some more being added to the non-resident, but we're going to try to spread it across the page for everybody is what we're looking at, a little bit on that. And the other one I was trying to think, can you remember the other question? Just about how to...
I know that you mentioned getting prosecutors involved.
Getting prosecutors involved. The tough part about, we've got some really great prosecutors that are really in this area that really help us with wildlife laws. The hard part is when we're giving stiffer penalties for poaching than we are on some of our penalties against human or humanity, where women are being assaulted or or robberies and things like that. Some of our poaching violations are harsher than those, and so it's really kind of a balancing act on that. Yeah, we would like to really see tone set. If we can get a hunter that's been involved in poaching, and we submit a recommendation, a lot of times, just because there's so many crimes in the court, they plea them out to lesser charges in order to not to have their dockets filled with poaching violations when they have drug and assault and other instances that they have to get through the courtroom just as soon. And so, the prosecuting attorneys, it's a tough job. We appreciate their hard work. I would like to see a lot of our penalties. I'd like to see a lot of penalties stiffened up for people. But, that's something that you as a public can go out and make your thoughts known to your local leaders or the commission or the state legislature and get those things enacted. I mean, that's the neat thing about Idaho and the government is it's the voice of the people if we get out there and get that to the right people to get it changed.
You had a couple of things that you still wanted to cover. We're down to under 10 minutes to go, and it's 9:51, and we're at 36. Kelton Hatch, our guest on KLIX from Idaho Fish and Game. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story. You mentioned Japanese ewe in the past. People have to stop planning this stuff.
Well, this morning we just had another 50 pronghorn killed out of the Payette area. They crossed the river out of Oregon, got into Payette, and they all died right on the Pacific, the Japanese U patch in a person's yard. It killed close to 50 animals over there, and I just heard about that this morning. We had another 7 killed, elk killed over by Sun Valley. Um, it's one of those ornamental plants that are pretty, but it's not pretty enough to kill wildlife. So I'm guessing what I would suggest is talk to your local nurseries. If you're a local nursery order, please don't sell Japanese yew um, to the area. I mean, it's a very toxic needle. It can kill your pets if they get into it, or human consumption. The needles are very toxic, and when wildlife gets stressed and they come down, it's a luscious green plant.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's all icy and snowy, anything green sticking out of the snow looks pretty edible. And so they eat that, and it doesn't take very much to kill them. And so just kind of be on your guard if you're landscaping your house. Maybe find something other than Japanese yew to landscape it with.
I like
Sorry
bricks.
about the Japanese yew guy that sells all these plants, but it's not working out for us here in Idaho.
I like bricks. There was a story I was reading not long ago about a guy who was a police officer, but he was working so many hours he didn't have time to mow his front yard, so he bricked the entire thing over. But he could park anywhere he wants now in front of the house.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm really an Arizona yard landscaping fan because they just throw some green rocks down in the front yard, and then you never have to mow or water it.
You have a couple of other things I know too we want to maybe touch on. Do you want to reiterate commission meeting?
The commission meeting, I want this. I'm hoping that I'm concerned that I didn't get all these bullet points answered for this young man that just had called just a few minutes ago. If I didn't cover all those, please call me at the office 324-4359. Love to discuss all those issues with you. I'm hoping I covered those because it is our desire to make things. My job is to preserve, protect, and perpetuate wildlife in Idaho, to make sure your kids and their kids have wildlife to hunt and fish for.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple. That's my job, to ensure the future of wildlife. And part of this is that's why we have commission meetings. I guess I get kind of frustrated because last time I came on special for our bighorn sheep meeting, we had 2 people show up at the regional office. And we're putting tags down in 54. We've had bighorn sheep down there for the last 25 years. Sportsmen haven't been able to utilize any of them because the population just hasn't flourished. We've got some rams down there we're going to just remove from the system through hunting. So we're looking at putting some down there. We had 2 people show up to the meeting here, 2 people down in Burley. Not a lot of concern evidently with bighorn sheep. Now that's what this commission meeting's about. It's going to be on the 25th and 26th. There's going to be a public hearing where anybody can get up and testify to the commission and tell them, if you're frustrated with these auction tags, go down and tell them. If you're frustrated with one of our hunts down here that it's not going the way, go down and tell them. Then come to our big game meetings the next month on the 13th, 15th, and 16th and tell us. You only have to come to one of them, or you can go online and answer our surveys and tell us what you want. But these are your sounding board. These are where you can come out and tell us what you're wanting to do. Or you can call us at the office, either or. But this way, you've got lots of ears listening to you. You've got other sportsmen there. You've got all the commission. You've got all the state biologists and managers at this meeting in Boise. That's on the 25th and 26th at the Walnut Building at 7 p.m. that night in the trophy room. We're having public testimony. You can testify on anything you want about the department. They'll give you about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how many people are there to testify. And the last commission meeting we had in Twin Falls lasted 7 minutes because we had 2 people testify when we had the entire commission here. The entire commission was here, and we had 2 people get up, or maybe 3 get up and testify for the whole meeting, and they were short and sweet, and so they'd never had one so short. So get out, exercise your rights, and come and talk to us.
About 75 seconds left. Very quickly, one last caller. Make it a quick one. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Good morning. Is there a way to put pressure on homeowners to get rid of the Japanese yew? I understand that might require another department, or maybe you could get PETA involved with it so that they could help protect the animals. Thank you.
Give
Yeah.
them something realistic to do for a change.
Yeah, there's not a lot we can do. That's what I'm trying to do is just get the information out there. You as a citizen can get the information out there. You can talk to your local nurseries. Say, hey, this is a pretty rough plant. Maybe you can come up with something different. And I think the key is education, and then people listening to that and changing it. If you've got a bunch of Pacific Yew in your front yard and it's been there for a year,
Yeah.
several years, it's tough to go uproot, a few $1,000s worth of plants that you're going to have to replant and take all the effort. But to me, it's worth it. And so, but um, I don't know. It's a private property state. I'm glad of that. But hopefully landowners will figure it out and do the right thing.
Yeah, just good judgment sometimes comes into all this.
Mm-hmm.
Very quickly, for people who'd like to check out the website, what's the address?
There's a couple things you can do. Please friend us on Facebook at Magic Valley Fish and Game Magic Valley on the Facebook. We put a lot of information on there. Or you can go to the Magic Valley website at Idaho fishandgame.idaho.gov.
There you go.
And then you can click on Magic Valley, and it's got all the Magic Valley news just on that page right there. We've got our own web page. So join us, find out what's going on. Love to hear from you.
We should see Kelton again in a few weeks, if not sooner. In the meantime, Rush Limbaugh is on the way following news at 10 o'clock this morning from Fox. Bill Colley with you. And, of course, tomorrow we have our gun guys coming in, but we're also going to be joining the inauguration festivities live here on the radio. And God willing, if the creek don't rise, I'll be back here tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.